Hey guys, for today's video I will cover Miyabi's kit and everything else you need to reach your full potential. I'll cover what discs to use, what engines to use, and what teams. For her core, it states that when Miyabi deals frost damage, she applies Ice Fire to the target for 30 seconds, and when accumulating Frost Anomaly buildup against targets with Ice Fire, it increases the Frost Anomaly buildup rate by 100% of Miyabi's crit rate, up to a maximum increase of 80%. And as Miyabi accumulates Frost Anomaly buildup, it has its own independent attribute anomaly buildup gauge and triggers freeze, shatter, and frostbite that can react with other attribute anomalies including ice attribute anomaly to trigger disorder. It also states that when Miyabi applies frostbite to enemies with ice fire, it will consume the ice fire to trigger frostburn break, dealing frost damage equal to 750% of Miyabi's attack and causing the target to enter the frostburn state. All squad members then accumulate 14% more anomaly buildup against enemies under the frostburn state, but Miyabi cannot reapply Ice Fire to these enemies, and the Frostburn state ends when Frostbite expires. While the state remains active, triggering another attribute anomaly will overwrite Frostbite and remove Frostburn. Upon triggering Frostburn Break, Miyabi will obtain 1 point of Fallen Frost. This effect can trigger once every 10 seconds. And it also states that when another character in your squad is a support character or shares the same faction, her basic attack Shimotsuki damage increases by 60%, and that when any squad member triggers this order, Miyabi obtains 2 points of Fallen Frost, and her basic attack, Shimotsuki, during the next Shimotsuki stance will ignore 30% of the target's ice res. For her enhanced basic attack, it states that with at least 2 points of Fallen Frost, holding her basic attack activates her Shimotsuki stance and starts to charge up. Every level of charge will consume 2 points of Fallen Frost, up to a maximum of 3 levels of charge. When releasing her basic attack, or when Fallen Frost is completely depleted, Miyabi will quote-unquote draw her blade and unleash a powerful slash ahead based on the current charge level, dealing massive frost damage. After this, she exits the Shimotsuki stance. During the Shimotsuki stance, she is invulnerable, she can have up to 6 points of Fallen Frost, and upon entering the battlefield, Miyabi will immediately obtain 3 points of Fallen Frost. For her special, it states that with enough energy, you can press her special attack to rush forward, dealing massive frost damage. Upon activating the skill, she gains 2 points of Fallen Frost, and if you have enough energy, you can activate the skill consecutively and do a quick follow-up attack that shares the same attributes as the initial skill. Miyabi will be invulnerable while using the skill, and for her chain, it states that upon activating the skill, she gains 3 points of Fallen Frost and an increase in ice damage by 30% for 12 seconds. Miyabi will also be invulnerable while using her chain. So even though her kit section in this video was 486 words long, her playstyle is actually incredibly simple. All you have to do is just apply Frostburn through Anomaly buildup, her skill, and her ultimate so that she can get Fallen Frost stacks. Then that's when you use her Shimotsuki stance and fully charge up her attack to deal the majority of her damage. Her ultimate is a nuke that regenerates 3 out of 6 Fallen Frost stacks, so use it once all of your buffs and debuffs have been applied so that you can use your ultimate and then your Shimotsuki stance rapidly and consecutively. For her relic substats, you're going to want to reach 2500 to 3600 attack, 10,000 HP, 800 defense, 116 anomaly mastery, 240 anomaly proficiency, 75 to 95% crit rate, and 150 to 190 crit damage. For her discs, you're gonna want the Branch and Blade song set because it increases her crit damage by 16% and it increases her crit damage by 30% more if she has an anomaly mastery stat of at least 115, which will come in handy since she's gonna be doing a lot of anomaly damage considering she is an anomaly DPS. She also gains a 12% crit rate buff for 12 seconds whenever a freeze or shatter is triggered, which will also typically be occurring during her gameplay. For an alternative, the Woodpecker Electro set would be viable because it gives her an 8% crit rate boost that is equivalent to the 60% crit damage boost from the Branch and Blade song set, and it increases her attack by 9% when landing a basic attack, dodge counter, or an EX special that crits, which this set already helps to do considering it gives her an 8% crit rate boost. For another alternative, the Polar Metal set would also be viable because it gives her a 10% ice damage boost, and because it increases her basic attack and dash attack damage by 20% and by an additional 20% for 12 seconds if a freeze or shatter occurs in battle, which is also good because most of her damage comes from her charged basic attacks and because freeze and shatter will consistently occur throughout the battle. But again, this is only an alternative because her ultimate damage isn't going to get a potential 40% damage boost. For her disc 4, you're going to want crit rate percentage typically, but sometimes you could also opt out for attack percentage. For her disc 5, you're gonna want ice damage percentage or attack percentage, and for her disc 6, you're gonna want attack percentage. For her substats, you're gonna want crit rate until you reach 80%, in which case you're gonna want to prioritize crit damage or attack percentage, and then anomaly proficiency or hard attack stat or pen. For her engines, her signature engine is going to be her best in slot because it gives her an unconditional 50% crit damage and 24% crit rate. It also increases her ice damage by 20% when using an EX special or when applying an attribute anomaly up to 2 stacks, each lasting for 15 seconds. For a 5-star alternative, the fusion compiler would also be good because it gives her an unconditional 15% attack boost and 24% pen ratio. And when using a special attack or an EX special attack, her anomaly proficiency is increased by 25 for 8 seconds up to 3 stacks, which is going to be good on her because she is an anomaly DPS. For a 4-star alternative, the Electro Lip Gloss would be viable because it gives her a 16% attack boost and a 25% damage dealt when inflicting an attribute anomaly onto an enemy. It also has a nice 75 anomaly proficiency main stat. For another 4-star alternative, the Rainforest Gourmet would also be viable because it increases her attack by 4% for 10 seconds up to 10 times for every 10 energy used. Not only that, but it also has a 75 anomaly proficiency main stat. For another 4-star alternative, the Weeping Gemini would also be viable because it gives her 46 anomaly proficiency, stacking up to 4 times if another party member inflicts an enemy with an attribute anomaly. Keep in mind that this buff expires when the target is eliminated or when they recover from being stunned. For her teams, Miyabi can be run in a quick swap team, an off-field anomaly team, a double support team, or a hyper carry team. For her anomaly team, you can run Miyabi, Yanagi, and any good support or stun character like Astra Yao, Trigger, Caesar, Nicole, Lucy, etc. This team is going to be arguably her best since both Miyabi and Yanagi can activate each other's additional abilities since they're both part of the same faction. Yanagi will also be incredibly good with her since Miyabi wants to be paired up with another anomaly DPS who can trigger this order, which Yanagi can effectively do. Not only that, but Yanagi can also make use of the quick swap window whenever Miyabi uses her Shimotsuki stance. For her off-field anomaly team, it's going to be fairly the same, except the Yanagi is going to be replaced by either Vivian, Bernice, or Piper. These anomaly DPS work extremely well with Miyabi since they can trigger this order efficiently and effectively because of their consistent and rapid anomaly applications. Not only that, but these characters can typically work off-field as well, which will give your Miyabi time to stack Fallen Frost stacks by applying her own anomaly application. For her double support team, it's as simple as the name suggests. You're going to want to run Miyabi and then 2 other supports like Astra Yao, Trigger, Caesar, Nicole, Lucy, etc. For her hyper carry team, you're going to want to run Miyabi with Lighter and Lucy, or Miyabi with Lycaon and Sukaku, or you could run Miyabi with Piper and Lucy. These teams are going to be extremely powerful because they'll allow Miyabi to do a ton of damage while the enemies are stunned, and she'll get ice damage from Lighter or Ice Red Shred from Lycaon. The supports here are also good since Sukaku can help Lycaon and Miyabi apply more anomaly so that she does more damage and regenerates more Fallen Frost stacks. And Lucy would be good if you're running Piper instead of Lycaon because Lucy can activate Piper's additional core ability and can trigger this order. Lucy is also really good with Lighter because she can help apply even more fire anomaly and can synergize well with Lighter's core ability, in the same sense that Yanagi and Miyabi could synergize well with each other's core ability because they're both from the same faction. For her Mindscapes, her M1 states that while in the Shimotsuki stance, every 1 point of Fallen Frost consumed will allow Shimotsuki to ignore 6% of defense, stacking up to 6 times and lasting until Shimotsuki stance ends. When a level 3 charged Shimotsuki hits an enemy under Frostburn, it will immediately remove the Frostburn states and increase all of your squad members' anomaly buildup rate by 20% for 10 seconds, which is incredibly good considering that Defense Shred has additive returns and is fairly rare, making it an extremely good damage buff. Not only that, but a 20% anomaly buildup rate is also a decent boost in damage since it helps her apply more anomaly, which helps her recover more Fallen Frost stacks and do more anomaly damage. For her M2, it states that the Kasahana and dodge counter damage increases by 30%, and Miyabi gains 1 point of Fallen Frost when the final move of the 5th hit of her basic attack, Kasahana, hits an enemy, and upon entering the battlefield, Miyabi will obtain 6 points of Fallen Frost and her crit rate increases by 15%, which is also insanely good for her since it increases her Fallen Frost regeneration rates. The 30% damage boost and the immediate 6 Fallen Frost is decent, but the crit rates and the Fallen Frost regen every 5th hit of her basic attack is actually insane. For her M4, Frost Burn Break damage increases by 30%, and upon triggering Frost Burn Break, Miyabi regenerates 250 more decibels, which is honestly pretty mediocre and only increases her damage by a fraction of her M2. For her M6, it states that during the Shimotsuki stance, Miyabi obtains Polar, which increases her Shimotsuki damage by 30%. After obtaining Polar, Miyabi will automatically draw her blade and unleash powerful slashes based on the current charge level upon consuming Fallen Frost. Before Fallen Frost is completely depleted, the draw and slashes will not interrupt charging under Shimotsuki stance. Each occurrence of Shimotsuki stance can perform up to 3 draws and slashes, which is also incredibly powerful, increasing her damage by a substantial amount and increasing her overall DPS by 116% of what it was at M0. For recommendations, I would recommend going for M2 Miyabi if you have the money to spend, since it increases her DPS by 36% of what it was at M0, and only going for her other Mindscapes if you're going for M6, since the difference between M5 and M2 Miyabi is only a 19% difference in her DPS. But even then, I would only recommend getting her M6 if you have the passion and money for Miyabi, considering the $2,000 price points. Regardless, an M6 Miyabi is obviously way better than an M0 Miyabi, considering that M6 Miyabi has 116 more DPS and 80% more DPS compared to an M2 Miyabi. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Goodbye.